Little King's story follows a not-so-good guy taking over the world. At the game's core, that's the basic plot for protagonist Korobo, and the central goal for the player. What this means, though, is that this world has to be one worth conquering, one that makes you want to explore every corner of it. And man does it just. This expansive world is truly special. It's completely contiguous, with all areas fitting together in one continuous space. No loading screens needed. You can swivel the camera to peek over cliffs and catch a glimpse at areas you won't be visiting until later. Sometimes much later. And then that anticipation pays off, as each wasteland, infested forest, and opposing country has its own personality, with nearly every nook and cranny filled with something, anything. There's always a collectible for some side quest, or a hidden crack in the ground filled with loot. The use of space is just so deliberately considered, where almost no spot is wasted. It all feels meaningful. And all this culminates to create a video game that one could lovingly stare at every corner of. Until maybe it just starts to seem a little odd. And when almost every place has significance, it starts to stand out a bit more when they don't. When there's actually just places that have less significance than maybe some others. This is a really good example. The former Honey Grounds has this ledge here that has some stuff to grab. And it has these other ledges over here with stuff to grab, and once you have collected all of those, there's no longer really a reason to go back up there. And it kind of leaves these empty spaces in the map. Over here, there's an art piece here. You can look over there to that part of Dark Valley. God, that's cool. And over there's some treasure, but yeah, this is just sort of a blank, empty space left behind. See, once Korobo is wandering around these places after already taking them over, grabbing everything, killing everything, and especially when there's no citizens in the party, which is the main mechanic of the game, the world still very much feels alive, The grass is here, the trees are here, but it all just feels a little less something. It all feels a little lonelier. See, this is a brilliant example. This is the Dark Valley, where you wander through the first time that you come to fight the Oni King. And there's Oni enemies standing on the cliffs throwing these pots below. Look, these broken pots below. And then they all leave, and you're left with this area that feels really empty, like something should be here, like the geometry of the level without the level being made yet. And it's weird. It's weird. But what makes this all so much something else is the fact that these high cliffs, in a regular game, this is just a space that exists for the Oni to throw things down on either side. I think of the Hell Valley Sky Trees, Mario Galaxy, that sort of... There are high cliffs that surround the area, creating that border, and that's kind of the end of it. But if you come back here, after being through the area, you can build those stairs and get on top of this here ledge, and actually be where the Oni were before, and walk around all that space. It's kind of like seeing the backstage of like a play or the staff area of a theme park or something like that. Or those fake halls at the edge of theme parks. It feels like the area you're not supposed to see. Hey, there's the area from before. But it feels even more like such a phenomenon when you go to this back area, this passage here, once you get the miner, you can explore this whole space back here. Hello, sheeps. This is fairly big as well. A lot of the spaces feel empty once you clear everything out. But this one's a little different because it's actually kind of just this empty even when you come here for the first time. It's very rare for a Looking Story area to feel this empty, honestly. And then, even the few things that are here, once they're missing, man, does it create a different feeling. This little peninsula here, there's a parasol under the tree, right? And you grab it, and you head back, and there's like a whole little trolling section, because you probably dropped off the cliff to get here, but then you walk over here, and some Yvonne frogs jump out of the water. But once you've grabbed that parasol, and you just stand here, this feels so lonely. Even with all of the, the signs of life that they give this game. Like, just look at all the details going on, even for an area like this. You have a tree swaying in the wind, you have the flowers bouncing up and down, you have the water shimmering, there's multiple layers to the water, and then they're hitting the sides of the land there and splashing. And there's leaves going past the camera, and yet somehow this still feels very, very lonely and weirdly still for this game. And I think that's just a really interesting atmosphere. Look, there's butterflies here. I think this corner sticks out to me because if you check the map, I believe this is the southernmost point you can go on the game, really. Yeah, look, I'm behind the queue in quest info. There is something very specific about the feeling that creates. See, this is something quite special about Lord King's Story in particular. If you think about a lot of games' worlds, they create the edge of the map by having multiple different areas loaded, and then at the edge of those there'll be some walls you can't climb. Lord King's Story isn't like that because the whole plot revolves around you taking over the whole world, so therefore you become quite aware of the edge of the map because you are exploring the very edges of the world, and the fringes just feel so strange as a result. Like, I just remember as a kid just feeling like there is nothing else beyond this. Like, beyond those islands, like that, there's nothing. You know, it's not like you can see the void. There's just ocean that you can't enter. It's not like there's even some decorative walls or hills or anything to make you feel like the land could keep going onwards, because it can't. You are exploring the very end of it. And that is fascinating. Once again, this whole upper area here feels like a place that you're not supposed to see. It's like the behind the scenes, because this is where all the Oni are standing and throwing rocks and stuff down. But when you're up here, there's barely anything here. There's some art pieces here. There's, I think, a hole in the ground over here. And that's kind of it. A lot of this is not economical use of space, despite this game being so specific and careful about how it uses its space the rest of the time. There's also just something really strange about, you feel like you're really deep in this valley when you first come through here in this level below. And it's not actually too far over, and then there's just the sea and the end of the world on the other side. Oh, look at that morning mist. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, look at that grey mist over the sea. Oh, man. 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in this game, when the sun's just coming up, is such an atmosphere. This is, again, there's another art piece up this tree, but there's so much space here. You will never find a more wide open area of space like this in the whole game, I can promise you that. And that's crazy. The game is so good at using its space. Like, even over here, there's actually, if you drop down that ledge, there's an art piece. There's a purse on this cliff over here, but right now, this bit of land is just sort of empty. There's not even really, I don't think there's any enemies that appear up here, outside of, like, generated quests. You might recognize this cliff from the Scepter video. I really wanted to show off. Like, look at this vibe. I'm from the UK, as you can probably tell from the accent. We have a lot of coastlines. Spend quite a lot of time walking around tops of cliffs and staring down at the water below. And this fictional representation of that feeling is almost nostalgic for me. There's just something really cool about seeing Carbo stand on the side of a somewhat naturalistic looking cliff. And then we have this. This is beyond cool. So over there, if you drop down there, that's the main part of the valley. That's where you enter the Oni King for the first time, just there. And his arena is encased in these cliffs. But when we're on these upper cliffs, we go around this way, and we drop down, we're in Sunflower Plains. This innocuous looking ledge here, which doesn't look like anything, this looks like a decorative ledge. There are decorative wall elements in this game. And yeah, that sure looks like one of them. But that's actually an area you can walk on, because it's connected to the upper part of Dark Valley. Oh, earthquake. That is a big earthquake. Poco Newsflash, we've recorded a strong tremor. You know, I think I recorded that too. This being the Oni King's Arena, the Valley of Memories, this is the entrance to Sunflower Plains. But yet you can go on the outer cliff tops. There's no reason to, but you can go on the outer cliff tops and find another entrance to Sunflower Plains that doesn't have any use. It's just there because the world is all connected. Video game worlds in general, their spaces are created to fulfill a purpose. And I think it's why you get specific areas that feel really odd. This video is very much inspired by AnyAustin's series of staring at things you never stared at, or odd and remarkable places, because I think he really captures something that is something I've always thought about with video games, which is the fact that the spaces all have been made, they're man-made, they're all created for some reason. They wouldn't be there if they didn't have a purpose. Whereas in real life, the use of space is kind of happenstance. It's smartly using what has been given, but here, these are self-imposed limitations. And the self-imposed limitations of this game are that all of this world is loaded in at once, it all fits in with each other. If you need a bit more space in a corner, for game design reasons, you will have to make some compromises elsewhere, because you can't just expand that out like you would with the edge of a loaded zone. But that also means that you get this connectivity. Sticking the camera over cliffs over here, you can see there's a street light there. Could be back at night because there's something I want to show off, and this gives a good opportunity to talk about Sunflower Plains. I know that this turned off many people from getting further in the game, this area, because it's so twisty. But isn't that just... I feel this is really well designed. You know, you have this upper path and bottom path that you can choose between, and you can take different routes depending on if you have miners or not. And this southern path is kind of the more straightforward way you're supposed to go through this area. But I remember finding that really hard as a kid. I don't know, it just kept stopping me from getting to the end. And I ended up just exploring elsewhere instead. It felt like this area just never ended. And then one day I came over here. And instead of continuing along this path, I dropped down this ledge into this little field. And then I came this way, and that was the route I took all the way to the other end of the Sunflower Plains. It's not actually a very obvious route, not gonna lie. It's actually a little convoluted, but it was the one I took, and therefore, I don't know, each of those areas means something different to me. And this leads us nicely to this gorgeous location, Firefly Lake. Look how pretty that is. Yeah, it's a simple effect, but gosh dang it, does it work. But there's something else I really like about Firefly Lake, which is also that it really spells out this interconnectivity of the world. Because we not only can see Firefly Lake from this angle, this little river that goes into the Southern Ocean and out into the nothingness. If we continue this path, we can actually get to... seems to be the edge of the... Are there fish? There's fish in the water! Wow, I did not know there were fish in this water. Look at that. But you get to this cliff, and it looks like the lake ends, and it's a nice little visual for the area. You continue on. This is another weirdly big space for this game. But yeah, you continue round through this. This feels like a smaller version of Dark Valley. Actually, if you take the camera to the other side here, you can see water. Again, the cliffs are the end of the world in a lot of video games, but even here at the edge of the map, there's water beyond those cliffs. But yeah, we're heading into the Jolly Kingdom on the other side, and way-ho, that Firefly Lake continues on, and you're on the other side of it now. So not only is there a building spot with its own challenge to create a bridge over there, there's another one here. And it's using the same body of water to create both challenges at two different parts of the world, two different levels you could consider. And the thing is that so other games like to create a sense of connectivity, like Mario Sunshine has its references to other areas in some areas, but the thing is that those are only representations of those areas. If you actually, went over there, you'd find that it was like a small, low polygon model representing that to make it look like it's all the same place, but they are different areas loaded in. And that is not the case here. This connectivity just never ends. You have the fact that every kingdom connects up to the Alpoco kingdom, see? See, we're back in Alpoco, in Korobo's hometown. So that immerses you, because you can see how it all connects up. You can see it's all the same space. You're given a direct... you can see a direct example of how it is. But the game really keeps going with this, because... if we go down here, we just went over to the border to Soldier Town. This ginormous area, there's a little cliff on the top right there. And that is somewhere you can look on over from Soldier Town and get a good glimpse of this area, which originally has a giant beastie in it. You won't be able to get in there until about 3 kings are defeated, but you can get up to that ledge top overlooking it from, like, less than a king. Yeah, like after the Oni Man fight. It's wild. But then it continues onwards, this connectivity, because there's a little back exit here to some far plains. You go through the kingdom, and after you've beaten it, there's a second road that goes to a whole new part of the plains, the northern section, which has its own collectibles and everything. That's just so cool. I love when games have that weird, like, back route type stuff into it. In those instances, it's done through loading zones and such. Whereas here, there's naturally connecting in one big space, which blew my mind as a little boy, as a baby Deadweight, and still blows my mind today. It's just everything. Everything. Like there's this little ledge I can stand on. This serves no purpose. It's just a space that needs to be. This ledge does, though. This has a bin on it that you have to dig through to grab an art piece. Not this one. And then just the more I stare at everything in this world, the more it just feels like everything. Like I just start to think more and more about it. Especially after playing the game so many times, recreating it in Minecraft. You start to really think about the fact that a human went and built all of this. And even the places in between. The actual literal definition of a liminal space. The spaces in between places that have character, that just needs to exist to be a space, not necessarily to have its own personality like the rest. That starts to really stand out to you after a while in video games, where those spaces in between have to be created. They still have to be drawn in a way. I really like this little area. I like most of the new areas that open up after Flying Machine parts. They feel very odd to me, because it feels like you shouldn't. It feels like, once again, going to a part of a level that was created, and it's like seeing the behind the scenes, like going behind the curtain a little bit. And it especially feels the case here, because the Ripe Kingdom, have these walls, but actually if you swivel the camera, you will be able to see there is sea beyond these walls, once again. What? Yeah, there you go, you saw a bit of sea. But the fact that there's, chairs and tables on the top of these, it makes it look like this is actually a commercial cafeteria area. We can't get up there. I really want to go up there. That's something I've thought about for years. I just want to sit on a little... I want to sit on a little table and chairs on the top of one of these cliffs. Like up there. What a great view that would be. I really want to go up there. And I felt that the same way when I played as a kid. You can't jump or anything. So the high cliffs feel like they are just barriers for you. Which is cool. It's not an open game. That's fine. But then when you get to build a set of stairs like this after beating the kingdom, and now you can stand on at least some of these high cliffs. Look, I can even stand next to, this bunch of tables. It's pretty cool. get to be amongst the decoration, but then you keep going backwards, and holy moly, that's all gone. There's no tables and chairs here. There's just a wide field for you to battle an enemy that's now dead. This game goes into so much detail to give every place some kind of meaning, how it affects the world in some way. And then you start to, because it does that, you think, well, what's this all about? What's this little corner here? Is there a story here? These butterflies? Look at these butterflies. Oh, the mist's coming back. My favourite. In fact, if you go through the Japanese guidebook for Looking Story, this little area here is given a little history. Apparently it was meant to be a second cafeteria. It kind of got abandoned at some point. That's just the cool detail they threw in. A regional piece of material. Then over in the corner we get the collectible, and that feels like it's the end of it. You just get the cliff wall, and we're done. But obviously I think you're getting the idea of what I keep feeling when I see things like this, which is what if you could walk up there? And you can't, but if you swivel the camera, see some bones over there. I remember doing that as a kid too, and there's some bones. Some little bones. Why are there bones over there? And that's because if you look at the map, that is Skull Plains. Isn't that something funky? I do this thing in games where I try to stare, like, what's on the fringes of the playable area, like what's beyond the part that's made for us to play in. And Looking Story is a game that just answered that curiosity over and over by being like, well, obviously it's the next place over from here. Like, that's the kind of thing I don't get in a lot of games. I go, what's over there? Nothing. So I really try to poke the camera around, and I see a bit too much. I see that there is, in fact, a void that starts there. But not this game. This game, there is something. If you keep walking over a cliff, you will end up a place. That's magic. That's the kind of magic only a video game world could create. Technically, you can do that. You can do that in real life, but it's not quite as fun. Bony Tunnel. Love the vibes of this area. You know what I love the vibes even more of? This little tunnel here. You can go to the end of this once you've beaten Bouquet's quest. You end up in a cave. Now this feels weird because one of the main things of this game doesn't have any loading screens. It's all loading in on the fly. This just straight up loads you into some tunnels. Which, because they're underground, they don't need to fit in with everything. It feels odd to have tunnels in Looking Story because there's not that many of them. And it's filled with snails. Now if you come back here and you kill all these snails, because they do respawn, but if you kill all them, there is nothing else here. It feels very, very lonely. Even here though, the main tunnel, even though this is also a loaded zone, it is measured to be the exact distance of the map in terms of its entrance and exit. It's the exact same across. And you can actually tell this because if there are enemies spawned here, they will appear on the mini-map as you, on the radar on the top right, as you exit the tunnel. Skull Plains! What a demonic looking area. I find it quite fascinating. Like, we have none of this moving grass nonsense, we have none of these nice colourful trees. No, we have flies and dirt patches and bones. You might have noticed the bones. There's one or two. Love some bones. But obviously, even an area that looks so abnormal and freakish like this has an edge. And here it's this, you can see that behind the trees made of skulls, you have just regular trees. Where the rest of the world starts. You might be able to see a rock at the bottom there. That's actually the rock at the top of the pinball table in the Shish Kebabu fight in the Ripe Kingdom. Like, just think about that juxtaposition of the happiness of the Ripe Kingdom and of all its treats. Then it's right next to, just over the hill from whatever this horror land is. Like, look at all this. And that kind of juxtaposition, again, it's about how these areas with different characters, different personalities, have to sit next to one another. That's something I found just really, really cool. They have to as well. It's a choice to make the whole thing completely contiguous, but it's not. It's not necessarily a choice to have those on the edges. That's part of the design limitation. Over here we have the Worrying Labyrinth, absolute vibe of a place, but they do just skip past it and whoop you over here once you're done with it for the first time. But at the end we have this massive tree on this cliff, at the end of the water. That weirds me out the more I look at it. Why is the tree so big? And again, it's there's something strange about the Waterworld Kingdom has these trees and grass and everything, but then if you look over the river, quite literally the other side of the pond, back to Skull Plains, you can see there's bones. You can see this ledge from the first time you enter Skull Plains. I remember doing that. As a kid, actually. Let me show you. I remember just coming over here and when I was finding these dudes and looking and being like, oh, there's something over there. The God memo is there originally too that you pick up off the ground. And I was like, that's a boss area right there. There's just something fascinating about that. Just seeing a later area just because they happen to be next to each other. That was so cool. I wish I could play this game again blind. That's why I want people to play this game, because there's just so many moments like that that I want people to experience like I experienced them. And once again, this whole problem of having to have areas fit in next to each other means that you can see the Primetime Kingdom very clearly over the cliff here too. There's some trees, and then a very thin ledge, and then boom, a giant lake. And the reason that's so fascinating to me is because on the other side, there are just tons of trees here. Just keep going and going and going. And then in the middle of all those is the forest racetrack, and it's like barely squeezing in between this clump of trees and the Jolly Kingdom. That area is a weird one. I'll probably explore that in some other video, I'm not even gonna lie. I think that'd be really fun. But on the other side to all that, you just go, you can just straight up see the Primetime Kingdom. And this means nothing to you the first time you play. I came to this kingdom first. I remember this distinctly from 10 years ago. I came here before that one, as a lot of players do. And you can just see over those cliffs, there's a something over there. And I didn't know what that was yet. I could see on the map it was a Primetime Kingdom, whatever that means. Like, look at this. We have a cliff here. A little tri-point. We have the skull trees from the Skull Plains. The little egg torches from the Waterworld Kingdom. And you have TVs and lava lamps from the Primetime Kingdom. They're all just occupying this one cliff. Isn't that just so cool? I don't actually have a lot to say about the Primetime Kingdom itself, not gonna lie. It's over here. Because it's just kind of a bunch of teleporty TVs over a lake. There's not really any special areas about it. Over here, though, in front of the Primetime Kingdom, we have a dead end. Just this little corner. Obviously, like most places in LKS, they didn't waste this because the developers are allergic to wasting areas. So there are a few collectibles in here. Because of course there are. But even they knew that it was weird to have a space like this that just kind of had to exist, otherwise this would just be a large expansive cliff of nothing. So they literally put a sign to say, there's a dead end up ahead. Over here's another cool bit. There's a very thin ledge. to a little spirally area over there. What's going on over there? Again, it teases you because you just have to find out later. You can't come here. Yeah. You have to go this way. Right, if you go this way, there's a crack in the ground here originally. See what I mean? This is just a random... This just needs to exist because something needs to be here. Look a crack in the ground with some money in it. Just if you spot it. I love this game so much. Then after you beat Primetime Kingdom, over on this side we have this little ledge here. Drops back down to the dead end, actually giving the dead end some purpose. This dead end just feels so weird, you know, it's not actually part of any level. It's quite big, all things considered. You get the picture, you get what I want about. You guys understand. There's a lot of areas in this game that look a lot different once you take everything over, and I think the main... One of the big ones for me is... oh, hello brightness. The graveyard over here. Haunted Zone 1, I believe. No, 2. That area looks very different when you first come into it. And it's made me realise I probably do need to do a video showing off those. Because it's very different to this empty world once you've done everything that has this strange vibe. Anyway, earlier we saw the southernmost point of the map, and now we're looking at what I believe is the northernmost. Yeah, look at that. We're barely on the map. That's cool. I don't know why I care so much about that. I did contribute a lot to the wiki. If you ever read the wiki, I do point out when things are the southernmost or easternmost points of the map, because they're so interesting to me. Like, look at there, there's that little bit there. There's an art piece in it. I just dedicated a whole little alcove there for an art piece, of all things. Heck, even that graveyard over there is for an art piece. And that's just a side quest with 100 in it. That's like sculptures. Like, imagine if they made a whole little den just for one sculpture. I think they did do that a few times, to be fair. I don't know why I'm saying that, like Ocarina of Time isn't also a masterful game. Anyway, this northern coastline is always fascinating to me, because it's like a little grassy area. You know? Got butterflies and the grass and the flowers. This giant foot. This thing feels huge. Goodness gracious. Then you have all these... You still have the skull trees and the skull plains, and oh, you go in this little corner here. Look at this little corner. You come into it. Yeah, back into the skull plainsy part of skull plains, where there's flies and skulls and all kinds of stuff. And then you go in the middle, it's just another art piece. They dedicate all of this space to art pieces. I find that really cool. Now, not every space can be part of the main adventure. So it makes the exploration that much more fun. Like, this is completely optional, but I discovered this, me. Not because it aids Korobo to take over the world necessarily. He doesn't even actually have to explore the whole world for that. This is the edge. This is the northern edge now. That is truly something quite special. God, I remember going through here for the first time. Just feeling like, where am I? It just feels like you're so far away from home as well. You look over there to the graveyard on the other side. And here we're heading over to the Tiptoe Kingdom now. Quite a bit about this kingdom I find fascinating. Firstly, it's all at the base of the mountain. Sobermanjaro. And then you come in and there's a sign here pointing you that way. And the sign just kind of looks like, you know, it's a sign. There's probably nothing behind it, just a grassy expanse once again. But no, you come in here and you're in the shadow of the mountain. This area is very special to me because when I first played this game, I could tell this was almost definitely my favourite game I would ever play. And to this day, it does remain my favourite video game experience, but this one was special because I specifically did not want the game to end. And you only come here after beating Sobermanjaro and accepting the quest that takes you here. And when you do, this is what greets you. And because the Tiptoe Kingdom was the last place that I conquered, and I really didn't want the game to end, I put off coming here. And therefore this is the last area I went to. What a last area to go to. This whole area feels very strange. You know what's really odd? Can't go up on this ledge here. That ledge is just for deco. But what I find really odd is you can go up this ledge here. And I think this feels odd because this feels like it should be the edge of something. But no, you can just walk across this. This is the clay part of the mountain. Look at this mix of grass from the fields and the mountain wall rock there. Then over here, again, you can go all the way over this. This ledge barely matters. But boy, once you rebuild this in Minecraft, these ledges start to stick out to you so much, and then you have this edge of the world, this little thin coastline that you can't go across. Despite not being able to go across that keeps going all the way to the other side. All the way to here. And this is the Hidden Hot Spring area. This is one of those examples of an area where something could be here and therefore something was. In the sense that you... This is the Hidden Hot Spring right here. This exists because the entrance to the new island is this way, and that's where the most attention is focused. But if you just decide to continue on the coastline just because it's there, there's a little area that has some stuff in it. There's a few collectibles here. Once those collectibles are gone, it feels very, very empty. But it already felt a little creepy here the first time I came. I remember this. I remember it just felt very far away. Right in the distance of everything. Like, forgotten. But I came here way before going to the boss. The bosses felt like events, so I never really wanted to rush my way to them. So I just saw the sides of this mountain here. You know, you can see the mountain on the map. You know what Mount Kilimanjaro is if you talk to enough citizens about it, like I did. Gosh, I definitely did. But I was wondering what these white streaks are that were coming down it, because I did not know what those were. Just seeing this mountain from down here. There's just something really unnerving to me. Maybe it's just because I built it in Minecraft, but again, the fact that there's these ledges. Look how far you can walk on this one. There's nothing over here. But you can walk on it. And then they just melt into the grass. The beginning of the mountain and the end are, it's kind of blurry. Oh, this right here. Don't ask why. This is a very British thing for me to say, but if you ever gone to like a National Trust type place, or just some garden, where there's places for you to sit and eat and drink, and then there's just trees, which you could walk into, maybe you would if you're a kid. That's what this makes me think of, just the corner of that. There's the dedicated area, and there's just the corner of trees. Let's go up the mountain. It's been 2 years since I made this whole place in Minecraft. That doesn't feel right. I actually always wanted to continue that series. It's just a matter of time. But what I love about this mountain is, look how it looks tall, but it actually isn't. Because the game needs to give you quite a lot of area to walk in. So look how a lot of these rocks are actually a lot flatter and a lot less steep than they look, but it's given a sort of optical illusion to make them look this way. Like this just looks flat. This is basically parallel. It's just given that illusion so that it looks like, by having this light grey versus dark brown contrast, it looks like there's a big fall there, when really, if you stare at it long enough, you realise just how flat this mountain is. This back path around Kilimanjaro, very famous. Especially if you played the PC port, rest your soul. But if we come over here, we can see the back of the mountain. Like I said, that sort of weird, jaggedy coastline, where the 2 points look on either side. It's a space that you can look at and it exists. You just can't go there. But it kind of just has to exist. I like that. I like that quite a lot. Then we have this ledge. This ledge weirds me out. There's nothing up here. There's never anything up here. When you first come to Kilimanjaro, this is the final obstacle. You have to build this while being electrocuted, and then you run all the way up here to the top. You never stop to go down here. There's even a unique camera angle and everything. Look at this. What's it for? I think this is for anything. There's not even any collectibles here when you come back. Wild stuff. Man, there's something so quiet about this area. Once the chaos of the battle itself is gone. You can say that about a lot of areas in this game. They all feel so lived in, and then they feel so abandoned. It feels almost perverted to be here once almost all life is gone. Say almost all life. Hello, Savage. Would much rather you jump off a cliff. Thank you very much. But yeah, it feels... There's this sense of adventure in taking over the world. You know, there's always that little childishness to it. You're not really supposed to be doing this, but you are anyway. And then it's fine. Then when you come back to these areas after you've taken them over and all the life is gone as a result. It feels very quiet and odd. Like you really have destroyed a way of living. And I haven't even talked about this area we're in. So Little King Story has a loading barrier that covers the loading because everything's loading in real time. So there's this mist that covers it all, and the mist changes depending on the time of day and depending on the location. Right now, this mist is dark and blackish, and that's to create the night sky feel. But the fact is, they are using it right now. You are seeing the edge of that loading zone right now. That's what we're staring at. There's this mist effect over it, but that's what that darkness is. If that mist wasn't there, you'd see maybe you just loaded things out. You just see the ocean go until it couldn't load any more ocean, which is sadly what the PC port does with all its glitchiness. But as it was intended, we get this really large... We have this feeling of being lost in the void. You know, high above the world, like we're in the sky right now. I mean, if you come down a little bit here, you can actually see basically to the bottom where the water starts, more or less. When you come up here on its own, it feels so much higher up than it is because the camera is forced just to look at this emptiness. You know what this really reminds me of, and I might be completely alone in this? Metroid Prime has the control tower at the top of the pirate base in Phendrana. In the remaster they released, they actually put mountains there to make it feel like a real place high above Phendrana, and that's cool. I appreciate that. But it does... There was a certain unique vibe of feeling completely lost in a void. It feels weirdly gamey, of course, but in when these games have, you know, such immersive environments, and then you have this sort of lost in the sky feel where you look on for miles, creates a very different feeling in the soul. There's a very specific feeling if you come here at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you can see that nighttime sky is becoming an early morning sky. It's getting grayer. I've never seen this before until today. This... of course you could always just come here and see this, I knew you could. But I never thought to, and then today I just thought, yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. Man, just look at that. Look at that. Look at that change of colour. Now we're almost at the white of the regular mist. But the mountain itself still has this sort of nighttime going into morning blue to it. Look at this. Look at that vibe. I know I'm really ripping off terminology from AnyAustin at this point. But that man has spoken to my soul. He knows how I feel about the feeling of 3D video games that are trying to represent real spaces like real life, but with their own artistic spins on it. And you end up with stuff like this. This is why humans design things. It's for unique experiences like whatever this is I'm doing right now. Like, what is this? You could not explain what this is to a Victorian child. And I don't care. That Victorian child can stay confused, because I love whatever's going on here. I love this sitting at the top of the world. And now we're basically there, the way it looks most of the time. The white sky that looks like you're above the clouds, when really it's just a loading wall that's being repurposed to look like you're above the clouds. That's just really clever. Here's a little story for you. So surrounding the castle is a moat. And surrounding the moat, there are a bunch of trees. I think that's pretty cool. But as a kid, I unfortunately, as I say, did not get past Sunflower Plains and had a save file mix-up. Deleted some save data. Sent me back and just made me feel a little bit frustrated. So I didn't play this game for, what felt like ages, but it's probably just like a year, I was a stupid kid. But I had a dream about what lay beyond these trees. And I know that sounds really silly, but this game does such a good job of enticing you into wanting to know what's beyond there, because it makes it clear that there is something beyond everywhere. Like, if you go over any set of trees, any cliffs, and keep walking, there will be an area. Which then made my brain dream about what was beyond there, and of course it just filled it with garbage. There's a couple of classmates turned into, like, raccoons, I believe. But then that brought me back to the game, because I had to find out what was beyond there, even if I didn't really care much for the game. It was okay. But it brought me back to wanting to know what was this world that it clearly wanted me to see the end of. So I guess you can imagine how cathartic that was to actually get to see that area. In the Somanjaro region, it is above the castle, but it's not that direct bit beyond the trees. That's over the river here, whatever that coastline is. You don't get to go there for quite a long time. You have to be in the Somanjaro, the Tiptoe Kingdom, that one, and also New Island. And in doing so, you can access this. The most liminal space, weird feeling area in the King story. Let's just point out the fact that this thing is not even properly marked on the map. There's just nothing there. It looks like there's just nothing there. But there's something. You can walk around in this. Maybe you weren't supposed to at one point in development. Maybe they added it last minute just because they were that obsessed with filling out space, as they seem to be. I don't know. There's windmills here. The same ones in the melon patch. Kind of makes the feeling that melon patch is like an abandoned, some kind of community, some settlement. That makes sense over there in that place. It's like a torn up farm. But here, these are just in the middle of nowhere. What are these doing here? Does someone live here? Then it gets even weirder. It starts to feel really uncareful, which is unusual for this game, because now there's just TVs that take you opposite sides of this bay. A bay with no other real significance. It's just drawn here. It's just there. It exists. And this all comes to head with the little island at the end, which has some rewards on it. It's the whole point of coming through here. It's in the middle of the sea. There's an island in the middle of the inner sea. For the most part, when you're at the edge of the world, that is the edge of the world. There's nothing beyond it. But not here, because if you over there is part of New Island. Don't believe me? Boom. There's a lot of New Island. It's just sitting there. Another very odd corner of New Island, in fact. This whole area feels like it wasn't supposed to exist. Like, they just threw a bunch of stuff they didn't know where else to put. And it's all thrown together area in a part of the map that they hadn't put anything in. If that's the case, I actually think that's really cool. It's just... wow, does this feel odd. It doesn't feel like it belongs anywhere. I consider making a whole video on this. It's the weirdest spot on the map. It doesn't belong to the Tiptoe Kingdom, it doesn't belong to Alpoco, it's slammed in the middle. The UMA book just calls it near New Island. And then in some of the translations they just don't refer to it at all, they just say, New Island. It's not New Island though, is it? Look at it. Do you ever just think about these scratches on the ground? Or the little islands here with the torches and the geysers on them? I do, clearly. Anyway, this is the peninsula leading to New Island. I remember the first time I came here, not knowing what would be on the other side of this bridge, and going from the Skull Plains music to the New Island music actually made me jump out of my seat. So yeah, this is the unfinished line of New Island. Not because the developers didn't finish it, but because God himself went to the toilet and forgot to finish it. Classic error. But yeah, this place is always awesome. The idea of having a kingdom whose land itself wasn't put together quite in time, and therefore its inhabitants are finishing it with scrap material. That's really cool. And it's really big. Unlike everywhere else in this game, there are these corners like here. This is an art piece once again. They have meaning because there's something stuck into them, and then after that they feel odd because their meaning is gone. Ow. But yeah, overall it is fairly big, but a lot of this is actually used for like level stuff. Like there's a compass here originally. I accepted this quest for a video and then forgot to actually record myself fighting it. Hey guys, don't mind me. Yeah, a lot of this is fairly big. Some of these, a lot of this is fairly big, but it means that small areas start to feel strange. Like this here. Now obviously you're thinking to yourself, well, there was something here originally and you've just gone and defeated it. That's right, there was the only instance of a standing still vacuum Oni here originally. And there's nothing behind it. There's no art pieces or anything. He's not guarding anything. He's not really in your way. He just occupies that space. This ledge feels odd, because it feels like you should be able to climb onto the tops of things. I don't know if that would break any game design even. It just feels like you should be able to go over there and climb on top there. You can't. It's not like Dark Valley where you can do that. You can't. And then over on the other side, kind of gives the illusion of being really big, you see, because you have this that you need a little crafting to go in here and get to this little corner. There's not actually that much here, but it creates the illusion of it being big. See, LKS has to balance the fact that you have to see the whole world. You have to feel like you take over the whole world. If you make the world feel too much like you've seen all of it, then it can feel weirdly small, right? Like you have to have just a little space that you can't quite access, otherwise it feels strangely small. That's the balance it has to make. But if you have too many of those areas, then it doesn't actually feel like you have explored the whole world. And thus you get stuff like this. This blows my mind. I cannot explain why. This walkway here, you can't walk across that, but think about if you could. Where is that going? It's going all the way over here, and then all the way back here. Then it just keeps going over there. And that's like at the very eastmost point of the world. I know I keep bringing up the something, but think about where that goes. Like it keeps going all the way over there. And that creates the idea that actually this isn't quite the end of the world as it would be. Which would make the island feel really small. I feel like you can walk the whole width of it and you've seen it. Somehow just having that space, that cliff sticking out just makes it feel bigger. I mean, it is quite literally bigger. From a game level standpoint, it's not. In my mind's eye, I often think this is the edge of the world here. Like this is just where the sea is. But then, forget, no, there's a little gap into the ocean there. That's really cool. It's like a little gate out. That's cool. And it keeps going. There's there's that whole another cliff. This creates like a little bay. Doesn't mean anything. Doesn't do anything. Why is it there? Because then it makes the world feel a little more naturalistic. It just adds that feeling of this being a real place. Even though everything's made of cardboard. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. See the little island there? Where is it? There it is. Gosh, what a weird place to just see the edges of borders that are so far apart in terms of... You have to walk quite a distance between these two to get there. And you have the translation piece on the ground. I think everyone misses this one. It's a very easy one to miss. You know what's a cooler translation piece, though? You go up this elevator here. You know something I bet you never did? Drop down this ledge here. Because there's nothing here. Why would that be? Never mind. There's more translation on the wall. There's all things used. Every space is used. But not every space is used. That's a weird paradox. This ledge here, used or not used? Quiz right now. Is this ledge used, or is this ledge not used? I've pointed out several random ledges that aren't used. This one's actually used. They put an art piece on this one. See what I mean? When you give significance to random little ledges like this, it means that the ones that don't have anything on them just stand out. It's like, the significance of that is that it has no significance. So this is just like a wall of cliffs, like a classic video game wall of cliffs, but it's not quite, because it doesn't end up in a void or just keep going until nothingness. No, there's ocean beyond there. And there's just tons of space here that you're not able to explore. And in a game where you can explore so much of what you can see, that always felt weird to me as a kid. Wide open nothingness. Just piles of rubbish. I can go back there a little bit here, which was magical. This would be the easternmost point on the map, wouldn't it? Because it's actually touching the ocean. Yeah, look at that. Right on the edge. And you know you're on the edge. It's not like a game like Ocarina of Time where there could be something over there that you're just not accessing. Because there's literally nothing over there. It's not like you could say, oh, well, in terms of a loading zones point, there's nothing over there, but in terms of the game's lore, that's where Lake Hylia is. No, there's nothing over there now. It is just ocean. Forever. Sticking with the theme of making New Island just feel so big. Just another row of really big cliffs. Even swiveling the camera, you can't really see over them to the side. Obviously, there'll be water there too. I would really love to see this game on no clip, honestly. I just know that those things don't happen by magic, but you could just see what's on the other side of those cliffs, which you can't see in this game, but they do exist. They have to be fully modeled. It's just due to how everything works. Now, and then we go over here, and this feels odd. New Island, huge area, in the middle of the sea, connected by that peninsula, sometimes brushing up against the land. And we have this bridge just going out into the sea. And then this bridge leads to a little island first. Oh, see, on the other side of those cliffs, there's just like a bit of... There's a little bit of terrain there, too. They're just so odd. Very cool, though. But yeah, you get this little island, sort of just in the middle of the sea. That's kind of a freaky vibe. Then you walk over here. You're back in the Kingdom of Valpoco. That looks like just a bridge in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, we're on the beach. This is the beach. Over there, beach. Very cool things that... Oh, look how pretty those waves are. Look how the shallow water has a different feel to the deeper water over there. Look at that. Look at that detail. Oh. You can almost feel it touch your feet. What's interesting about over there beach is it's very thin and it's wrapping around the forest. And it makes the two are very different, you know, a beach and a forest. Unless you're New Super Mario Bros. 2 World 3, not exactly the same thing. They are distinct, very clearly, but they're next to each other, and that creates their own sort of weird, strange feeling. Because this is supposed to feel like you're in a deep, dense forest. You know, like in these alcoves, like you're getting lost. A little scarecrow dude. And if you move the camera over there, you can see, yep, that's some sand. It's just the beach is right there. And then it kind of breaks the illusion a bit. But it gives a new illusion. The illusion that this is all actually one connected world, which is a cool illusion, as illusions go. I'm an illusions expert. I'm an illusionist. Overall, it does a really good job of feeling like you're deep in the forest here. Like, over this direction, that's where the castle is. You can kind of see the water's there, but not really. So it does feel like you're deep in a forest. Like up here, what's up here? More trees. But over there, if you kept going over there, you'd be in a new island again. But that's kind of the summary of what makes this game so great, is it's these places that are supposed to have different characteristics, all fitting in with one another. And I think the way they have to do that is really clever. They have to be this one world. They all have to connect one another, they have to coexist, but they are supposed to feel different. I think nowhere is that more clear than if you go deep into the forest here. You have this secret entrance to this glade. But you look at it long enough and you realise this is the glade where Korobo gets his crown in the opening cutscene. Originally you're supposed to play this area, as I talked about in a previous video. But this is the alpha of it all. This is the start of the story. But what's really freaky is, once again, it's deep, lost in the forest. But you swivel the camera, and the water's right there. If you go around this way, you see actually, that's where we were not so long ago. You can see that's actually the bridge to New Island. Which means that this is the first thing you see in Little King's story, is Korobo deep in the forest and getting this crown. And just over the hill from it, geographically, you can see a shortcut connecting your kingdom to one of the last kingdoms in the entire game once you've defeated it. And that is just the magic and beauty of Little King Story's world, summarized in one place. The juxtaposition of having these two completely different areas with different meanings somehow on the same screen, with just a little moving of the camera. I think that really encapsulates why this is my favourite video game of all time.